The Motor City is just down the road, but for this week, let's say Brooklyn, Michigan is, because we are ready to race. Welcome into Around the Track, Carla Metz, Gabe McDonald, and the Mitten is ready to host one of the fastest races of the year. Yeah, Michigan International Speedway has some wild racing on deck this weekend, and to get you ready, we've got someone who's fighting for his playoff life. RFK Racing's Ryan Preece is in Garage Confidential, his first season in the 60 car, and a NASCAR fan favorite and a pit crew legend, Rocco Williams, is back in the house as well. That's right, so why wait? Let's go ahead and hit the track, and the key term for this weekend is get a grip. Whomever can find it and avoid getting loose on this 2-mile asphalt track will keep those lap times up and in turn keep track position, find the grip, and find 200 miles per hour. Michigan is one of the few tracks where the RPMs get revved up to the next level, and the best car will exceed 200 miles per hour, and it's going to be uninterrupted too, because for the most part, this track is pretty smooth. Multiple grooves here in the run. As long as you can hold it together, you're going to have a shot at victory lane.
I've won there before. It's a fun track. It's really, really fast. It's a little sketchy with how fast you get down into those corners and how fast you got to get through those turns. But you know, always puts on exciting racing, especially on restarts down the front straightaway. Guys, 3 wide, 4 wide, wherever, they're all trying to funnel down into the 2 grooves that you get to into the corners. So looking for the years that it starts to spread out again, and you can run all the way up to the wall like we used to before the repave there.
Yeah, Michigan is a very fast racetrack. It's probably honestly the fastest place we go anymore. I mean, we're going to be 200 plus getting into the corner. So it's one of those tracks as a driver, like it just gets your attention. And I think for us, it should be a good race. You know, I feel like our cars have been good on those style of racetracks this year. So yeah, excited to go up there. It's always an entertaining race. It's chaos for us just because of the runs and how fast we're going. So yeah, it should be a lot of fun up in Michigan.
You already know what time it is. Let's do some track trends ahead of this weekend's race. You could say that this is a Ford-dominated track. 9 of the last 10 victories in any of the Big 3 series belong to the Mustangs. The only outlier was last year when Tyler Reddick's 2311 Toyota picked up the dub in Michigan. So where does that leave Chevy? The last time they won here was in 2016 and 2017 in Cup, and who was behind the wheel? A young man named Kyle Larson driving the 42 car for Chip Ganassi Racing. Like action at the front of the pack? Well, this is your track for sure. The last 2 races at Michigan each had a track record, 16 different leaders. All eyes, of course, going to be on Brad Keselowski, Eric Jones, and Carson Hocevar. Why? Well, that's because no Michigan driver has ever won at MIS. So could this be the year? Might be smart to bet on someone who's already won in 2025. Only 1 of the last 12 Michigan Cup races was won by a driver getting his first win of that season. Well, listen, we've heard you guys at home ever since his last appearance. You guys have clamored for him, so we made it happen and brought him back.
That's right. He's a pit stop legend, a longtime Hendrick Motorsports teammate, and the host of many NASCAR shows. He's ready to break down the Mitten. Dion Rocco Williams, we call him Rocco on the show. Welcome back to Around the Track.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, NASCAR sure does love curveballs, and when we look at the schedule, Michigan is certainly that. For the most part, it ends up being a fuel mileage race, despite some drivers clocking those fastest speeds that we've talked about. But in comparison, this also gets compared to Indy's Oval, but what makes maybe Michigan so special for drivers?
What makes Michigan so special for drivers is the fact that it's so fast, and to win at Michigan, you're basically the fastest guy out there for the simple fact it's very smooth, and your speeds get very high, and it creates opportunities for the tortoise versus the hare. Those who are just pitting every time the tires run out, and those who are calculating fuel mileage. I like to look at Michigan as an engineer's racetrack. Whoever comes there with the most downforce, the tires don't wear, and the best strategy to get offset and get that clean air, that's the team that's going to succeed here, and I'm very excited to see that.
And you mentioned the fuel mileage as well. The fuel window around 45 to 50 laps. Probably don't need to stop in stage 1. Lesson, of course, here's a caution, and the tire fall off here isn't as fast as maybe other tracks. What's that mean? Not as many pit stops in Rocco. That's why you're here on the show. So who are the teams to watch for if they don't have as many chances on pit road at Michigan?
If you don't have many chances, it's the teams that do well with their strategy and sticking to it, especially when adversity happens. What I mean by that is if you're scheduled to do 2 tire stop in that first stage and a caution comes out, don't deviate from your plan. Stick to your guns, because we've seen in previous races that anything can happen. And at this track too, it's so hard to pass. So what I really am going to see and looking forward to seeing here is the difference between who's doing 2 and who's doing 4, because that is going to really get guys up front where that clean air and that downforce and that on throttle time can really be taken advantage of. And you have to race in the top 5 to win here. Put it that way. So you need that track position, and you need that great strategy from the crew chiefs and the engineers before you get to the racetrack to have a very solid game plan.
Let's talk about some drivers that could take advantage of what you're talking about now. We've talked about it ad nauseum, but it was only a matter of time, and he finally got it done. But Ryan Blaney won a race in 2025. He's arguably the strongest Penske car of the season, despite all those DNFs that we've seen. But Rocco, we don't think that Blaney's done winning yet, do we?
We don't think any's in that Ford, and we know that they are trending up and they make late runs. Penske owns this racetrack, so at the end of the day, all 3 of their teams are locked into the playoffs right now. Their notebook is wide open. They have a lot of confidence racing in the manufacturer's backyard and a lot of pride with how many times that they've won here. I mean, Hendrick, Joe Gibbs, that could be a lot of motivation for them too. Some teams work better as chasing as opposed to being the leader. And coming to Michigan, I mean, those Chevy cars are definitely chasing all of those Fords.
You mentioned the Fords, too. I mean, you have Wood Brothers with Josh Berry getting that win as well. So, I mean, it seems like the whole operation, absolutely, they're all doing, solid stuff over there as well. So we'll see if they can end up back in victory lane. But, Rocco, we're some big fellas here. We know you can handle yourself when it comes, throwing blows a little bit. But how about these two that we saw last week in Nashville? Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Carson Hocevar aren't exactly buddies right now. Carson wrecking the 47 out of the race in Nashville. We know the 77 a little bit aggressive for being a younger driver in the circuit. Ricky told Motor Stardom that Hocevar has yet to call him to talk about that incident that we saw last week. What is really the standard protocol in the garages after you see something like this? And do you think we see any retaliation on the track a la Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse last year?
It depends on your age. Because old school drivers, they had a protocol, where they would call and they would, I guess, a gentleman's type of theory where, hey, am I bad or whatever. At the end of the day, younger drivers, younger pit crew athletes, guys, they're competitors. And at the end of the day, it's hard for guys coming into the sport early to even race in the top 5, top 10. Inspired Motorsports and Hocevar showed he has what it takes, not only to race up there, but to great finishes. So maybe there needs to be a little more give and take from the veterans here who are trying to manage this young phenom who is racing amongst them instead of just always wanting the younger guy, more inexperienced guy, who's racing aggressive because we know how hard it is to get up there.
Yeah.
So I better be aggressive because that's what his team is paying him for. Now, if my team tells me, hey, we don't want you to run top 5, at the end of the day, he's the driver and he knows what it takes to be up there. He's up there consistently. There might be a little more give and take, and I didn't see anything really wrong with what Hocevar did post-race until maybe he needs to see the film and really get a grip. You put a mic in front of a driver, I know in front of me, right after a race, I like his composure and his professionalism. Hey, let me calm down. And at the end of the day, if they did get into a tussle, it would be a really good one, because Ricky Stenhouse, I already know he can throw them bows. And Hocevar being young, it would have been cool to see.
Yeah, no drama for Rocco. No drama here on this set. In fact, Rocco is sticking around because we got more on Around the Track, including this exclusive interview.
I think that's just the mindset you have to have as a race car driver, because being fearless is kind of a thing that you need in order to go fast.
Since joining RFK Racing, Ryan Preece has found his stride. Now the driver from Connecticut is looking for his first Cup win with the team. You can hear from him in Garage Confidential.
And NASCAR's newest track isn't new at all, but it will be to some of these drivers, both Cup and Xfinity, heading south of the border. This footage from an Xfinity race in Mexico City all the way back in 2005. We're going back coming up next. And Rocco has already been talking about good tequila, so he's ready to roll for sure.
Yeah, speaking of rolling out, a Cup driver is rolling to the Truck Series. We're going to tell you who that is when Around the Track continues.
Back here on Around the Track, the Xfinity Series on the CW is off this week, but next week it's the Fiesta south of the border. Mexico City will host both the Xfinity and Cup Series races at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez Road Course. It's all a part of NASCAR's plan for global expansion. And what a way to kick it off than having 2 extra cars in the Xfinity field. It'll be the biggest race in the series since 2021. We know Monterrey, Mexico native Daniel Suarez will be part of the Xfinity field. He's pulling double duty next weekend. No matter the series, though, the teams are excited to get down there.
I don't even know which way the quarters go yet. I got 2 weeks to figure it out. I think we're going to get some help from Chevy to get on the sim a little bit, but I've raced in Mexico before in the TDI Cup Series. It was really cool, and just our road course program is really, really good. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a little harder to breathe, I guess. That's what I hear at least. So try to prepare as best as we can there, and like I said, try to turn the season around.
Back here with Rocco Williams. Rocco, you've been around the sport for a while. You're seeing the sport really just grow globally. What does that say about just where we are and just how cool is it going to be to have that experience for a lot of those drivers next weekend in Mexico?
I'm excited about it. I was at the first Mexico race, and I remember how I was early in my career, but it was such a great experience, just not one, visiting Mexico, but two, just seeing other demographics and excitement. They're going to treat it like a soccer game, and don't wreck Daniel Suarez or one of those Mexican drivers. I remember last year, they get really, really involved, and it was just such an exciting, great feel. And for NASCAR to be able to do that, it just shows how far we've come as a sport, and it's very exciting to see NASCAR grow the way it's doing.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing that. A fun weekend in Mexico. Now we got more with Carla, who has more on some big happenings in the sport as well.
Yeah, Gabe, a major update in the 2311 Front Row Motorsports case against NASCAR. U.S. Court of Appeals has overturned the preliminary injunction that forced the sport to recognize both teams as charters during the season. Both 2311 and FRM filed an antitrust suit against NASCAR and its owners, the France family, over revenue sharing and its charter system. Both teams now have 14 days to file a request for the entire appeals court to hear that case. If the current appeal holds, the teams could lose their charters and be forced to race as open teams, meaning they'd have to qualify every single week. And for multiple drivers, this is a home race for them, including RFK owner Brad Keselowski. But if you ask him or anyone on their roster, it's a home race for the team, and that includes the driver of the 60, Ryan Preece, who's done nothing but exceed expectation this season. But as our Casey Funderburg explains, that's still not enough for Preece.
I'm joined by Ryan Preece, driver of the number 60 car for RFK Racing. Ryan, we've got a big weekend coming up in Michigan, so where's your head at looking forward to that race?
Well, it's a big weekend for us because Ford and the OEMs, it's kind of like our, it's the race that we really want to bring back to RFK and win it for them. So there's been a lot of preparation there, and you know, for me, it's a place that I've really liked going to because it kind of reminds me of home.
Because of the nice cool weather, not the hot weather like here.
Absolutely. So you know, with these race cars, they get so hot, right? With the temperature only being about 70 degrees this weekend, I know myself and many other drivers are pretty excited about that.
Joining RFK meant building the number 60 team from the ground up.
It's definitely nice to have an owner who's currently driving in the series, because when you're dealing with some things that maybe your car's not doing quite what you want it to, we can really streamline the process and try and fix it. So that's been really nice. But yeah, I mean, here at RFK, it's really been eye-opening, the different perspective, how Brad and Chris approach a race, and the training side, and just really all the tools that we have to be successful. So appreciative of the opportunity, and you know, we have some great partners, and we're always doing a lot of fun things.
So when you're having to drive against the owner, but your teammates too, so does it create like a weird dynamic at all, or?
You would think so, but no, it doesn't. You know, one question I get asked now is, would you ever move your teammate for the win? And I always joke and say his initials in the team name. So you got to be easy about that, but we're all really competitive, and we're all trying to bring back the trophy.
And how does that just make coming in here every single day, how does that make it better when you have that good camaraderie and teamwork with one another?
I mean, it's not really work. You know, it's like going to hang out with your friends. So it definitely it changes things a lot, and it makes it a lot easier, because you know, our meetings are super productive, and I feel like we've done a good job continuing to make speed with our race cars.
You had a pretty nasty crash in Daytona, and you've had 2 of those now in the same location, I believe.
Yep.
So how do you just keep getting back in the car after something like that happens?
Yeah, so I think as a race car driver, there's a chance that we could wreck every weekend. At least that's the way I'm wired and the way I think about it. Most people, if they have one wreck in their life, that's a big deal. So for me, you know, when I wrecked at Daytona, not only this past year, but a couple years ago, I woke up and was ready to get to the next racetrack, because that's what I do. It's no different than if you're playing in football and you get hit really hard and probably knocked out. You're just like, well, I got to get up and go. So, you know, I think that's just the mindset you have to have as a race car driver, because being fearless is kind of a thing that you need in order to go fast. So yeah, I haven't looked at it any different.
And that fearlessness is what drives Priest in every aspect of his career.
You know, for me, there's been different parts of my career. And one of those parts was Ryan, who just showed up and drove. And then there was Ryan, who got way more hands-on. And now I'm at this point in my career where you can't be hands-on, but you need to focus on the driving aspect. And that's really been the nice thing. It's kind of been like relearning yourself again. And but at the same time, having the knowledge that you learned along the way.
Okay, you just said those different Ryans.
Yeah.
What do you think the next one is going to be?
I don't know. Hopefully one that wins a lot.
Well, Trackhouse is making the call to the bullpen again, and by bullpen, we mean the Red Bull driver. Connor Zillich just got rewarded with more Cup dates. We've got those coming up.
And speaking of Zillich, he's been tabbed as one of the future stars of NASCAR's Cup Series. But who in the Xfinity and Truck Series could be on the same level? We've got opinions, and they're coming up next right here on Around the Track.
He's been an analyst on this show. He's driven a Cup car this year and made his prime debut, but that's not enough for Cory Ljoy. He's going truck racing this year with his old team, Spire Motorsports. That starts this weekend in Michigan and will extend to 8 other races, including the playoff schedule. Ljoy has a long history with Spire. He drove for the Cup Series team from 2021 through last year when he was traded to Rick Ware Racing.
Connor Zillich is making the most of every opportunity that he gets, and you can add 2 more Cup Series dates to those odds. The 18-year-old will pilot the number 87 for Trackhouse Racing at both Atlanta this month and Watkins Glen coming up in August. Zillich just had a decent drive during our sport's most grueling race, a 23rd place finish during the Coke 600. He knows how to win at road courses as well, getting a win at Coda earlier this season in the Xfinity Series. And all of this got us thinking, we're entering a new age of NASCAR, a different kind of driver. So in 5-6 years, who's going to be the face of the sport?
Yeah, of course, Connor Zillich is on our list, but who else could make a run? And you don't really have to go far down the young drivers list to see that Carson Hocevar, right? He skipped Xfinity, got right into a Cup Series car with Spire. Carson Kvapil in the Xfinity Series. He doesn't have a win yet, but he's got the most points of anyone not locked into the playoffs. And then, of course, Raja Carruth got the confidence from Mr. Hendrick himself as he notched multiple wins in the Truck Series. Corey Heim, already the developmental driver for 2311, and then Taylor Gray making noise in his rookie campaign for JGR in Xfinity. Don't forget about the RCR guys either. You got Jesse Love, Austin Hill. Both have a knack for racking up wins. But this brings up, yeah, that question, Rocco, of who could be that next star.
I believe it's going to be Raja Carruth. You know, for the simple fact of watching his progression, not having the great equipment, getting better equipment, not having the best crews, getting great finishes, a great points racer. At the end of the day, Raja Carruth won a race this weekend in Nashville, holding off not only Cup drivers, but the like of multiple race winner Corey Heim, and showed his prowess against drivers with way more experience than him and better equipment, to the point where Raja will, if played strategically and with the help of Big Rick, he is going to be our next star, for the simple fact that he is such a polarizing driver that everyone loves. You know, he's most popular driver in the Truck Series, and he just has a lot of motion right now. So that's who all the picks are good that we just talked about, but Raja Carruth's got the most motion right now, in my opinion.
And you mentioned the pit crew that he had, you know, having Cup guys on there. Who are some guys, you know, some over-the-wall guys that you're looking at as well that could be those next stars?
Well, very excited that I had 9 individuals compete at the Elite Hendrick Combine. All the teams have their individual combines to see who the next superstar pit crew athlete will be, but Hendrick just takes it a step above. Over 60 athletes they had vying for positions for only 12 to 13 spots, and 9 of my guys had the opportunity for one of those positions. And the good thing that we're doing here is that when I get to you, you get a bit of a cheat sheet. You're going to know what these teams are looking for. So I'm praying for my guys that they did everything that they had to do to make the impressions that they had to make to get on one of those roster spots.
That's awesome. Well, Ryan Blaney did not smash the guitar in victory lane, but he did burn it down last weekend. Who do we think is going to do so at Michigan? We got the Sportsbooks odds and our victory lane locks. Those are on deck when Around the Track continues.
One day there will be a race where Kyle Larson isn't the favorite going into the week. That week is not this week. He's at 5.5 to 1 to take the odds to take the checkered flag. Denny Hamlin behind him at 6.5. Then you have last week's winner Ryan Blaney, 7.5 to 1 to get it done, while William Byron and last year's Michigan winner Tyler Reddick round out the top 5 at 8-1 to get it done.
All right, one thing left to do, that is our victory lane locks. Let's see if the pit legend takes a team with a fast pit crew.
I am taking the team, I'm picking with my heart. I'm going with William Byron in the 2014 Hendrick Motorsport. I know Ford, I know Hendrick doesn't do well at Michigan, but the last time Hendrick won, I was a part of that pit crew with Jeff Gordon at 2014. So I'm picking with my heart. William Byron, he gets top 5s. Willie B is going to take it at Michigan.
I like the pick. You mentioned the top 5s there. I think I would maybe go Ryan Blaney. Who would you go with?
I'm going with Christopher Bell. I know he hasn't finished better than 13th, but he has won a pole at Michigan. Got to run in the top 5 to be able to get it done, so I think he can start up front and find his way to victory lane.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this week's episode of Around the Track. We hope you enjoyed the race at Michigan, and of course, we will see you ahead of the big race at Mexico next week.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.